themselves, they want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
Happy Monday, everybody. Good Monday afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the JD Sports Show live on 12 Ounce Sports. Glad you're with me on a fine Monday afternoon, wherever you may be living. Monday, it could be afternoon, it could be evening, it could be good morning. Whatever the case is, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be listening to. Whether it be on 12OunceSportsRadioNetwork.com, YouTube, Facebook, or Zingo TV, thank you for joining in on another Monday afternoon with the JD Sports Show. Glad to have you with us, with me, I should say. I'm the only person with me this afternoon. It's a lot to talk about this afternoon. We have a World Series set. Both the American League and the National League Championship Series both went to 7 games, so we're going to preview the World Series, which just to kind of throw in there, I may or may not have exactly predicted, just like I did with the NBA Finals. Maybe I should just call the Super Bowl now. Speaking of the Super Bowl, we're going to talk about Week 6. 2 games tonight we'll talk about as well. We'll talk about Week 6 and everything that happened there. College football for Big Ten is finally back this week with the big headliners of Ohio State, Nebraska, Michigan, Minnesota. I'm going to talk about my Wolverines and why I believe Michigan will win at Minnesota this weekend, and we'll also talk about how Ohio State should walk their way through the Big Ten season and get into the college football playoffs. So a lot to talk about here on another Monday on the JD Sports Show. It is October 19th, and we're ready to go, so let's get it on. Let's talk about the playoffs of Major League Baseball. Yesterday, Game 7 of the National League Championship Series went on, and on Saturday, it was Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. Both of the championship series went to Game 7s. Both extremely exciting series. Both series were kind of similar in some ways because of the fact that both teams put other teams in holes. And what I mean by that is that the Rays were up 3-0 in the series, and the Braves were up 3-1 in the series, and both series still went to 7 games. It took 7 games to decide. And the Braves and Atlanta Sports, my goodness, once again blew a 3-1 lead. I saw the Cleveland Indians Twitter post today. The 3-1 rehab meetings are on Tuesdays. Of course, they're referring to them in the 2017 World Series when they blew a 3-1 lead over the Cubs and the Oakland. Not the Oakland. They are located in Oakland, but the Golden State Warriors blew a 3-1 lead to the Cavaliers. in the NBA Finals as well. A little different because the Indians and the Warriors did it in the championship. The Braves did it in the semifinal, but still, nonetheless, they blew a 3-1 lead. And I watched pretty much every bit of the Rays and Astros series, and I watched a good majority of the Dodgers and Braves series. And I wanted, even now, I will say I did predict on this show, which I retweeted my prediction that I had done before the playoffs. I had predicted the Rays and the Dodgers in the World Series, so you would think that I was rooting for the Rays and Dodgers World Series. I was actually really rooting for a Rays and Braves World Series, and it looked like it was going to happen. I mean, the Rays were up 3-1 or 3-0. The Braves were up 3-1. You think, okay, no way that LA is going to get away with 3 straight wins in the playoffs, or Houston's going to get away with 4, and they both almost did. LA did come back from 3-1. At this point, I wonder, maybe Atlanta should just purposefully never have big leads in series or in games, because they have just, ever since the Falcons blew the 28-3 lead in the World Series, Atlanta sports have not been the same. Georgia, the Bulldogs, blew the lead in the national championship game against Alabama. We've seen the Falcons now do it several times, including this year, and now the Braves blew a 3-1 semifinal lead. Atlanta sports probably should just get behind from now on. Wow, it's crazy to me that actually happened again. But it's even crazier the fact that even as good as the Dodgers were, I personally thought the series was over when it was 3-1. I thought, okay, yeah, LA might win a game or two, but I thought there was really, I felt like the way that it was going to set back up, because that would mean that Atlanta was going to turn over to Max Fried and Ian Anderson again, their starting pitchers, that they couldn't lose both of those, and they did. And it's not all the pitchers' fault. Look, excuse me, Max Fried and Ian Anderson both pitched phenomenally. Their offense was nowhere to be seen, really, in Game 6 or 7. And it's a shame for Atlanta, because I think they're a really fun team. And I really did want, even though I predicted Dodgers and Rays, I really did want a Tampa Bay Rays and Atlanta Braves World Series. And now, even though, again, I did say I predicted the Los Angeles Dodgers in 6, which, by the way, I do think is still going to happen. I still actually feel very strongly about my pick. I do want the Rays to win the World Series. I like them a lot. They're a very fun team to watch. Like I said, I watched the majority of the Tampa Bay Rays and Houston Astros series. And that Rays team is just a lot of fun to watch. And how about Randy Arozarena, the young stud outfielder who just demolished Houston pitching, was the American League Championship Series MVP, first rookie to do so. He just came out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, look, the Cardinals traded him in the offseason, and I bet 95% of the baseball world didn't even know that trade happened, because it was just kind of a whatever trade. And lo and behold, the Cardinals traded away the American League Championship Series MVP. And no doubt in my mind, if the Rays don't have Randy Arozarena, they do not win that series. I mean, he was so clutch game after game, including Game 7. He hit the 2-run home run in Game 7 that put them up front, and they never looked back. I mean, it just was unbelievable how clutch he was in the championship series. And, they need him, and I know, that's asking a lot, but I really think the only way I see the Rays winning the World Series is 3 things have to happen. One, they got to hope some way, somehow, and it's almost impossible to ask for, but they have to hope Randy Arozarena stays just as hot. I mean, he has got to be just as hot for them, because the thing with the Rays lineup, and Kevin Cash, their manager, talked about how it's not necessarily a good thing, but it is something that their lineup does, is outside of Randy Arozarena, they have not had a consistent hitter. I mean, it's been every night. I would say Mike Zunino, their catcher, probably was the second best. He had 3 or 4 really clutch hits as well, including a home run in Game 7, but they really have not had a consistent hitting lineup, right? Like, usually when you go to a World Series, you're looking at 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys in the lineup that you can go, okay, they're going to be good for us. For the Rays, it's different every night. Outside Randy Arozarena, it has been a different person that has helped kind of be the B guy in the lineup. And so it's kind of a problem because it means that you got to kind of put a heavy load on a Rays Arena and hope that you do get some production from somebody coming out of the lineup. And so, to my point, they have to have Randy Rays Arena be big. But my second point, my 2 or 3 points is they need a couple other guys to help because when you're facing the Dodgers, who have the offense that they do, you've got to score. I think you can get away with it with Houston, and I think Houston had a really good offensive lineup as well. But I felt like you could get away with it with Houston, and you could get away with it with New York because New York was such spotty hitting. But with LA, especially the way they've been hitting since they had that 11-game first inning in Game 3, it feels like I don't know if you're going to get away with winning 3-2 or 4-2 or 2-1 games like you did with Houston. I feel like you're going to have other guys, but not named Randy Arozarena, to come up and be consistent in the World Series. They need somebody offensively to kind of be the next guy that you can go, okay, there's now 2 guys or 3 guys in the lineup that the Dodgers pitchers have to worry about. With Atlanta, that was kind of the problem for the Dodgers is Atlanta. They would have those guys. You had Acuna, you had Freddie Freeman, you had Marcell Ozuna, you had Travis d'Arnaud. You need that kind of help. Now, obviously, I know that they didn't win. The Braves didn't win, and that's my point, right? I mean, they had 4, 5, 6 guys in the lineup that you could point at, and they still lost in 7 games to the Dodgers. Now, the difference is, and this is my third reason of how or way the Rays have to win, is starting pitching for the Tampa Bay Rays and pitching in total, not just starting pitching but bullpen, is a lot better than what the Braves threw out there. And it could be the difference of this series. Outside of Walker Buehler for the Dodgers, they do not have a starting pitcher that I would say they have a really good chance. And I'm not going to sit here and be the guy that bashes on Clayton Kershaw and his postseason because it has been a horrendous postseason career for him. But do you really? I mean, you would think you would trust Clayton Kershaw. I mean, the guy is a Cy Young winner. He's won MVP. He's done just about everything but be a ace in the postseason. However, the Rays, they have 3 starting pitchers I would trust: Charlie Morton, Blake Snell, and Tyler Glasnow. 3 starting pitchers that I could trust to win a game for me if I'm Tampa Bay. Plus, I like Tampa Bay's bullpen a lot. And I love the way Kevin Cash and their analytic team uses their bullpen. I think they're very smart about it. They don't have the defined bullpen, right? It used to be, okay, you had a 7th inning guy, 8th inning guy, and a closer. That's not the case. Nobody had more people get saves this year than the Rays because it's not about having that quote-unquote closer. It's about who makes the most sense at that time, right? And it's worked. They had the best record in the American League. They went 40-20 this year, and they're in the World Series. And they did it with not a lot of hitting. I mean, their offense was very blah in both the Division Series and the American League Championship Series. They had clutch hitting, and you have to. I mean, look, again, Randy Arozarena, you have to have clutch hitting to win a World Series. It's just what it is. I mean, you look back at every World Series champion, there was a game or a moment or whatever that won a World Series for a team. So they're going to have that, but you don't have to have that. The Rays formula is they don't have to go out and score 5+ runs a game to win. They can win games by scoring 3 or fewer runs because they have the pitching to do it. So, to my third point, they need those 3 guys, Tyler Glasnow, Charlie Morton, and Blake Snell, to be the guys that they are meant to be. They're the 3 guys that they have. Those 3 guys, when they step on the mound, and I would assume it'll be games 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how Charlie Morton pitched Game 7, so you would assume probably Glasnow. But regardless, those 3 guys, even if I'm not saying that they have to win those 3 games, right? Because that's hard to do, but those 3 pitchers have to allow their team to have a chance. And again, kind of what I mean by that is those 3 starting pitchers, when they go out there and take the mound for whatever game they take, they have to give the Rays 5 or 6 innings of 2, maybe 3 or less runs because that will keep that's their formula. That will allow the Rays to keep in the game. If they give up more than 3 runs, they probably won't win that game. They need those 3 guys to be those ace pitchers. And it's a lot to ask, but they've done it. They have done it throughout the postseason and through the regular season. Those 3 guys, Morton, Snell, and Glasnow, have been that capability to do it, but they're also facing the best offense they have faced all year. Now, I don't think the Yankees are as scary as everybody made them out to be. They're a very, very hot, cold offense. It's a reason, that they didn't make it past the Rays, because the starting pitching of Tampa beats that hot, cold. I mean, the New York and I think I don't want to get too much into it because it's kind of an off topic, but I think New York's going to have to really re-examine their philosophy, because the Bronx Bombers and the boom or bust offense is just not how you do anymore. I mean, it's just not. Look at Tampa Bay. Look at LA. They can generate runs in many different ways, and it's the reason they're in the World Series and the Yankees are not. You can't. Those boom or bust, the home run type offenses just don't work anymore. And outside of Garrett Cole, they didn't have really any pitching. I mean, truly, Masahiro Tanaka was okay, but outside of Garrett Cole, if they didn't have Garrett Cole this year, they may not have made it as nearly as well as they did, and they still had a lot of struggles this year. I mean, they almost were third place in their division at some points. Anyways, moving on from the Yankees. I think it's going to be a great World Series. I'm excited. Again, I wanted the Braves and Dodgers, but I think this matchup of the Rays pitchers versus the LA offense is a really intriguing and I think going to be a really fun matchup. So that I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be a really fun kind of back and forth matchup to see, and it'll be interesting, right? I think this could play into how teams work this offseason, because if the Rays win the World Series, it shows a couple things. One, you don't have to have the highest payroll. The Tampa Bay Rays have the lowest payroll in baseball. It'll show you don't have to have a high payroll, and I still think it should. I mean, look, there are 2 players in the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw and Mookie Betts, who almost make up the entire salary cap of the entire Tampa Bay Rays roster. So, difference there. And will show us, does really good starting pitching depth or does a little bit of a really solid lineup with 1 or 2 good pitchers work? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So it could factor into how teams construct their roster for the future. I still think that I would construct it more towards the Rays. It's very. I mean, how many times do you see in baseball where huge contracts just don't work very well? And again, look, for the next 5 or 6 years, that Mookie Betts deal is going to look amazing. I don't blame the Dodgers at all, but I mean, it's a 12-year deal. You really think Mookie Betts is going to be the best player in the league for the next 12 years? No. I mean, he's already played a lot. I think for the next 6, 7, 8 years, it might look good, but after that, I think building your team year to year around what you feel like is the best to work with your strengths and weaknesses is the best philosophy. And that's what the Rays do. They use the analytics to do that. They build around, they pick up these guys that might not work on other teams, but they know will work on their team. They make trades like the Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows trade that they got from Pittsburgh for Chris Archer, that a lot of teams go, wait a minute, that was kind of a dumb trade for the Rays. They really gave up Chris Archer, who at the time was one of the best pitchers. And what happened? Chris Archer went on, and he's done nothing with Pittsburgh. Tyler Glasnow, one of their aces, and Austin Meadows is a figure in their lineup. So they just know how to do those things. The front office is very smart. The coaching staff is very smart. They know how to work around what they need to work around. It's very fun to watch. Again, I want to make this clear. I hope the Tampa Bay Rays win the World Series, but I'm going to stick with my prediction. I think the Dodgers are going to win in 6 games, but I hope somehow the Dodgers, or I hope maybe, look, next Monday we could be champion. It's very possible that the series will be over when we come back on the show next Monday. Hopefully we're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays. It could be the LA Dodgers, or we could be getting ready for the second half of that series. By the way, Game 1 of the World Series is tomorrow night. Game 1 tomorrow night on Fox, so catch it there. Let's talk a little bit of NFL football, shall we? Let's talk about Week 6 that was. Pretty hectic Week 6. Some big injuries as well. But let's get to it. And big injury in this game. What a great game this was. I was watching on Sunday NFL Ticket. I was watching this game for a little bit, talking about Texans and Titans, and it looked like the Titans were going to run away with it. Next thing you know, Texans just keep coming back. They fight, they claw. The Titans eventually win 42-36 in overtime. Derrick Henry went literal beast mode. I don't think Derrick Henry is fair. He had 212 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 94-yard touchdown run. He is unfair because he is so big. Yet he is so athletic and fast. It is inhuman. And it's unreal. And Tennessee, look, you can say what you want, but they're 5-0. And they have had to play 2 games in a very small. They played on Tuesday and they played yesterday. And they won both those games against 2 good teams. Texans are not a good team. I mean, they have a good player, Deshaun Watson, who, again, I keep preaching on the show every week, is a phenomenal player. He just needs help around him. But they beat a really good Bills team, and that's tough to do. Kudos to the Titans. Mike Vrabel is looking to be the best coach coming out of the Bill Belichick kind of tree. I know he technically wasn't like a coach there. He was a player there. But, he has said himself he learned a lot of what he does today from Bill Belichick, the way he coaches. It looked like the Bengals were going to blow out the Colts, and then the Colts defense stepped up, and Phillip Rivers found out how to pass the ball again, and the Colts came back and won 31-27. Phillip Rivers, 371 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Another kind of Phillip Rivers game. Joe Burrow, again, 300 passing yards, was great. He did have a pick. Excuse me, he did have a pick. He had a rushing touchdown as well. T. Higgins, who was looking like, remember, they drafted T. Higgins in his last draft as well. Is looking like he's kind of becoming Joe Burrow's favorite target. I say this, and I really do believe that, continue to work just as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, and that's tough to ask for when you have an offensive line like they do in Cincinnati. But as long as they can do everything they can, and I think Zach Taylor, their head coach, who came from the Sean McAvee tree of philosophy, is doing a pretty good job, I think, of doing what he believes he can to keep Burrow safe. But anyways, if they can keep Burrow safe and healthy through this year and continue to work on him and just, let him grind it out, right? Let him experience the NFL. Give it a couple years. Let's hope. If they build correctly around Joe Burrow, give him a better offensive line, maybe another weapon, give a better defense in Cincinnati, I really do think the Bengals, and specifically Joe Burrow, are going to be Joe Burrow is going to be a star. They just have to continue to build around him. And it's easier said than done, but, just help him a little bit more. But let him grind it out. Just keep him healthy is really the main thing. My goodness, I said this last night in a group chat to my buddies. I think the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles are the 2 most disappointing teams in the NFL this year. The Falcons, this score is way closer than the game was. The Falcons beat the Vikings 40-23. They get their first win of the year, 1-5. Vikings fall to 1-5. Matt Ryan looked really good. He was 371 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins is, to this day, still looking like the worst contract in the NFL. He had 343 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, but Kirk Cousins is pulling Kirk Cousins. He's had 3 picks. However, the one bright spot for the Vikings outside of Delvin Cook might be Justin Jefferson, their rookie wide receiver, who I think was a steal. I mean, everybody, and I still think letting Stephon Diggs get traded and not was a mistake, but Justin Jefferson is a stud, and he had 166 receiving yards, 9 catches on 2 touchdowns. He's a really good player. I like him a lot. I wish somehow, some way, the Bengals could have got him because it would have kept up the Burrow and Jefferson connection. And I think that, and I'm nothing against T. Higgins, who I think is a really good player and is looking like he's really good with Joe Burrow, but I think it'd have been really fun if Jefferson would have been able to be drafted by the Bengals. But a good pick, doesn't matter. The Vikings stink. They're 1-5. How about the Patriots? They're under 500. The Broncos get back Drew Lock, who was not very good. He had a couple of picks and 189 passing yards, but the Broncos defense was phenomenal. They also had 2 picks from Cam Newton. The Broncos won 18-12 over the Patriots, who just look, I might be a little biased here because I am a big Tom Brady fan because of the Michigan roots, but I'm just saying it. The Buccaneers are really good. The Patriots are not. Just saying, number 12 might have been carrying that franchise a little bit more than people might have been giving him credit for. Um, the Giants, the Giants beat the Washington football team 20-19 instead of going for one on a late scoring touchdown. The Washington football team and Riverboat Ron decided to go for two. It was a failed conversion. So the Giants get their first win. They proved, I guess you could call it, improved to 1-5. The Washington football team falls to 1-5. Man, Washington is weird because I watched a little bit of that game, and they have some really good players. I think Terry McLaurin is such an under-talked about receiver, and it's because of where he's at. But he's a really good wide receiver. I think Terry McLaurin is and should get out of there. I think if he was put on a right team, I think he would get more notoriety. And I think he does get some bit, but from maybe like more hardcore football fans. But for more casuals, I mean, people just don't know about him because of where he's at. But he's a really good player. And it's look, he's an Ohio State guy and yada yada. But that doesn't take away the fact that he's a really good player. And it stinks for him that he's on a terrible football team and a terrible franchise. I hope somehow he gets out of there when he can. He's got to be. I think he's probably got at least 2 more years on a rookie deal there. But he's a really good player. The Ravens barely hung on. They beat the Eagles 30-28. The Eagles go to 1-4-1. The Baltimore Ravens go to 5-1. It was not the offense's fault this time. It was the defense's fault. The offense, they had a 3-score lead at one point. And, look, give credit to Carson Wentz. He led that Eagles offense back. He had 213 passing yards, 213 passing yards. Yeah, correct. 2 touchdowns. He was only 21 for 40, so not a very good completion percentage. But they also asked him to throw 40 times too. Anyways, he tried. They went. They obviously had to go for the 2-point conversion when they scored their touchdown. They did not get it. So the Ravens hang on 30-28. Lamar Jackson, 186 passing yards, touchdowns. He also led the team with 108 rushing yards and a touchdown. Look, I know I said this last week as well. I think since the Kansas City game, people, I don't know why, but it feels like people are kind of shutting away the Ravens and kind of forgetting about how good Lamar Jackson is. I know he didn't look good in that Kansas City game. I still think Lamar Jackson is a phenomenal quarterback. I know that I'll even admit, would I trust him to go out there and have to use his arm to win the game? I don't know. But if they can play the kind of style that they want to play where it allows Lamar to pass and throw like they want him to, I don't know. I still think the Ravens are a good team. I still think Lamar Jackson is good. I think people are kind of forgetting about them, but watch them. The Cleveland Browns, I talked about on the show last week. I think they were legit. Well, after yesterday, I have no idea anymore. They kind of look like the Cleveland Browns of old. They got whacked by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I mean whacked, 38-7. It was so bad Baker Mayfield got benched in that game, late in the game. The Steelers won 38-7. I talked about Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins becoming superstars. Another one, Chase Claypool in Pittsburgh. He's becoming a superstar there as well. He made a great catch down the sideline early in that game. He also had a rushing touchdown as well. He's a really good player. I don't know why, but Pittsburgh, they just know how to draft wide receivers late. Like, they don't ever draft him in the first round, but past that, if they pick up a wide receiver, you should probably be worried that they got him and not you. But boy, Cleveland, oof. I think Pittsburgh's good, but I don't know what this means to. I don't know how to figure this out. Like, does this mean that Pittsburgh's really that good, or is Cleveland really was a fraud? I don't know. I think next week will more. I do think that Pittsburgh is a good team, and I tell you what, that Pittsburgh and Baltimore game when they play, they'll play twice. Watch out. That could be for the division because they're going to be right there. Baltimore's 5-1, Pittsburgh's 5-0. That's going to be a really good couple of games there. Excited for that. How about So I talked about Minnesota and Philadelphia being the most disappointing teams. In my opinion, I don't think there's any question that the Chicago Bears are the most surprising team. They're 5-1 now. They stopped the Panthers' 3-game winning streak. They won 23-16. They don't do anything great. Like they're kind of hard to watch. Like I watched a little bit of that game yesterday, and of course I watched them week 1 against Detroit. And they're very tough to watch because they're just like an ugly beat 'em around team, right? Like they don't do anything great, but they win. And it's just so weird because I said this in a group chat last night to my buddies. How in the world are the Bears 5-1? Like I don't know. And it's not. And I'll be honest, they've beaten some good teams. They beat Tampa Bay. They beat Carolina. Like they have beaten decent teams, and they're 5-1. I don't get it. I really don't. The Dolphins shut out the Jets 24-20. Fitz magic was there. 3 touchdowns, couple of picks, kind of a Fitz magic kind of a day. The Dolphins defense was phenomenal, of course. The New York Jets are a mess. They're 0-6. I said this on the show before. I hope they go 0-16 so that another team can be added to the 0-16 resume. They're a disaster. I really, truly don't think they'll win a game this year. If they do, it's going to be by pure luck. They're bad. The Miami Dolphins are not bad. Look, they're 3-3. And they're in an NFC or an AFC East that is not unwinnable anymore. I mean, the Patriots are not the Patriots team. I think the Bills and the Jets are in that division. I think with the way that we have seen the AFC East Patriots this year, Miami's got a real chance. They're in second place behind the Bills. I still think the Bills are the best team in the division. I think they'll win the division. But Miami's got a chance. They are not out of it. They're 3-3. They get to play the Jets again, so that's probably another win for them. They're right in the playoff hunt. And also, by the way, Tua Tagovailoa got in the game late. What a great moment. I think people have kind of forgotten that in that last year, that injury he had in that Alabama game against Texas A&M, was career-threatening. A lot of people wondered after that injury if Tua Tagovailoa was ever going to play again. It was that severe of a hip injury. Of course, Tua's determination would not let that happen. He worked, he got cleared, he showed off what he could for scouts. He was a top pick from the Dolphins. And I love Tua. I think he was so not Alabama, right? Like Alabama is kind of that show-offy kind of a school. Tua has always been such a humble guy, and you can tell when I've seen interviews with his parents, and they're just such a humble family. I love Tua a lot. I really hope he's successful. I said it on the show, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I really do believe that Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Tua Tagovailoa, the 3 quarterbacks drafted in the first round this year, I really do believe as long as the Dolphins and the Bengals can build around Burrow and Tua a little bit better, and the Chargers build on Herbert, I really do believe all 3 of these guys have the ability to be really good quarterbacks in this league. I like all 3 of them. And so as long as, they stay healthy and the teams can help build around them, Chargers can continue to build on what they have there in LA. I really do believe that all 3 of these first-round quarterbacks have a chance to be really good. It was so cool. And then also there was a picture tweeted out last night of Tua sitting on the field after everybody had left, just reflecting. You have to think about him. I'm sure he didn't know if he was going to play again. He probably thought I'm sure there was moments that he thought he would never play football again, and there he was playing in the NFL last night. Really cool moment for him. By the way, Brian Flores is the head coach for the Dolphins. He is a coaching disciple from the Bill Belichick. He might not be too bad, too. I tell you, he did a lot. He's done more with this roster than I think a lot of other coaches would. They were really, really bad last year, and he still found ways to win games, and they're still really not that good. Like, they're okay, but I don't know if a lot of coaches would have them at 3-3. I'm just saying, Brian Flores, I think if they continue to build there, watch out. I think in the most surprising game yesterday was the Buccaneers whacking the Packers 38-10. Not only whacking the Packers, but making Aaron Rodgers look so bad. I think it arguably was the worst start in Aaron Rodgers' career since he kind of became Aaron Rodgers. Take away those first few years where he's a rookie learning, but since he's been like the Aaron Rodgers we've known, he should have had probably 4 picks. He only ended up having 2. Didn't have any touchdowns. and the Buccaneers whacked the Packers 38-10 to prove to 4-2. The Packers lose their first game, go to 4-1, and yes, that means they are now in second place. The Chicago Bears have the lead in the NFC North as being 5-1. Tom Brady looked great. The Buccaneers looked great. Gronk had a touchdown catch, first one for him since 2018. Again, I'm just saying the Buccaneers are 4-2. Tom Brady's looking good. The Patriots are 2-3. They're not looking good. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm going to say it. I think Tom Brady was kind of pigeonholed into being the system guy, and it was all Bill Belichick. I disagree. I'm not saying, look, did Tom Brady, was he the sole reason for all 6 Super Bowls? Absolutely not. Like, any fool would think that. But I would argue with anybody that if Tom Brady had not been there in New England during this run, they would not have won more than maybe 1 or 2 Super Bowls. And I would argue that to anybody. I think he was that important to that franchise for what he did, and he's continuing to show why in Tampa Bay. My Lions. The Detroit Lions will beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-16. Yay, we get Matt Patricia for another week. I'm so excited. By the way, I was not rooting that game. I'm just kidding. Of course, I always want to see the Lions win. But at the same time, I want Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn out. So a loss to the Jaguars wouldn't have broke my heart because I would like to see Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn get the heck out of Detroit. But look, the Lions played really well, and the Jaguars are really bad. Like, I really don't believe the Lions showed really much. I mean, they're an okay team. I think what it really showed is that Jacksonville's a really bad team. I have no idea how the Colts lost to the Jaguars. The Jaguars should be 0-6. They're a bad team. The Lions are an okay team. I mean, the Lions, look, they're probably going to win 5 or 6 games this year. But if 5-11 and 6-10 is good enough, then I don't know. So, and then in last night's game, the 49ers beat the Rams 24-16. The Rams made a late comeback, but the 49ers won a big NFC West matchup to improve to 3-3. The Rams fall to 4-2. Jimmy Garoppolo was but he wasn't that great last year either. I mean, it was mostly the defense and the running game that helped them get there. 2 games tonight: Chiefs and Bills on Fox at 5. Matchup of 2-4-1 teams, 2 great young quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I'll take the Chiefs by 7. I'll take them in a score. I think the Chiefs are going to bounce back after that bad loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think the Chiefs are going to be upset, and they're going to come out with a good game plan. Plus, they had an extra day. Also, Monday Night Football on ESPN at 8:15. The Cardinals and the Cowboys. First start for Andy Dalton. What will the Dak Prescott-less Cowboys look like? I want to take Dallas here, but I'm going to go Arizona. I think the Cardinals are going to win by 3. Late kind of a game, going to come down to the wire, but I'm going to pick the Cardinals by 3. I know it's in Dallas, but I don't really think that means much. I like Arizona. I like Kyler Murray, so I'm going to pick the Cardinals by 3. The official theme song of the JD Sports Show is Odyssey by Scorch featuring Austin Tenick. You can go to SoundCloud now to listen to Odyssey and other songs by Scorch, so shout out to them for the official theme song of the JD Sports Show. Thank you to our sponsor, The Fields Golf Course. Make sure to visit their website, thefieldsgolfcourse.com, to book a tee time and for future availabilities. Get it now while fall golf is still going on. We've got sports back pretty much every day now, and if you want to support the 12-ounce sports team, there's an easy way to get in on the action. 12-ounce sports is going to hook you up with a crazy deal when you sign up and make your first deposit on mybookie.ag. When you make that first deposit on mybookie.ag, they'll match your first deposit up to $1,000 when you punch in the promo code 12-ounce sports. That's 12OZ sports, all caps, no spaces, when signing up on mybookie.ag. To get your deposit matched up to $1,000. Please always remember to gamble responsibly. We'll take a short break and we'll end the show on college football and Big Ten talk. We'll be right back on the JD Sports Show.
Drink Aid, ready for distribution worldwide. Drink Aid, ready for distribution worldwide.
And welcome back to the JD Sports Show here on 12 Ounce Sports. Thank you for joining me today. Shout out again to all of our sponsors, Fields Golf Course, Zingo TV, MyBookie, and thank you to everybody listening, whether you're listening on 12OunceSportsRadioNetwork.com, Facebook, Twitter, Zingo TV, wherever you may be listening today to the JD Sports Show. Thank you very much for doing so. We're live every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern on 12 Ounce Sports. We're going to wrap up today's show with college football talk. This past weekend proved to me two things. One, Clemson is by far the best team in college football. And two, Alabama is by far the number 2 team in college football. The Clemson Tigers rolled over and decimated the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets 73-7. Really, there's not much to say other than I just right now, again, we'll see what Ohio State looks like, but right now, I don't think I really believe anybody could beat Clemson in a one-on-one game in a neutral site. Not even Alabama. I don't think anybody could right now. And again, I'll wait to say that for sure. I'd like to see Ohio State play for a few weeks. It'll be kind of hard for Ohio State to tell until the Penn State game week 2. After the first 2 games, Nebraska and Penn State, we'll have a better idea of what they look like. But right now, I don't even think Alabama would. Now, Alabama took care of number 3 Georgia. That was a big win for Alabama. It made me believe that Alabama is the number 2 team. But like the difference right now between Clemson at number 1 and Alabama at number 2 is more like if it was a difference normally between number 1 and number 10. Like it's a big gap in my opinion. I think Clemson is so far ahead of everybody else that it's going to take. And again, we'll see where Ohio State's at, but it feels like a really big gap between Clemson and everybody else right now. If there was a betting odds in Vegas of Clemson versus the field, I would put some heavy money on Clemson. I really don't see anybody outside of them winning the the college football championship this year. I'd be shocked. But guess what? We get the Big Ten back for the first time this year. The Big Ten will play this week two of the big games that we're going to talk about: Ohio State, Nebraska, Michigan, Minnesota. Nebraska and Ohio State will be the noon game on Fox. I don't think this is going to be a great game because I think Ohio State's going to obliterate Nebraska. It's a big game in terms of just really seeing where Ohio State stands. I think that's really what everybody wants to see. I don't think anybody really believes that Nebraska has a shot in this game. I think maybe some people in Nebraska might think that, who, the whole state of Nebraska believes, or the whole place of Nebraska believes that they brought back Big Ten football. But nonetheless, outside of Nebraska, nobody really thinks that they have even a shot at Ohio State. I think this is more of just a kind of a, and I don't really want to say measuring stick, because I don't think Ohio State and Nebraska is going to give you a really good idea of where Ohio State's going to be, because, it's a mismatch. But it will give people an idea of, okay, where can Ohio State be? How good are they really? And it kind of reminds me of Clemson, because they're bringing back their best player, Justin Fields. Clemson brought back their best player, Trevor Lawrence, and a lot of loaded roster. I mean, Alabama lost a lot of people. They lost Tua. They lost some of their best receivers. They lost 3 all-star starters on defense. Clemson lost a bit. They lost T. Higgins, which was a big loss, but they brought ETN back. They brought Trevor Lawrence back. They still have their coaches. It's just it feels different. Ohio State feels the exact same way, and they bring Fields back. They lost Dobbins, but they're going to have somebody else step up, I'm sure. They lost. Their receiving core was tough, but they've also had the best receiving draft class, or the best receiving incoming class the last 3 years. So that's not going to be that big of a deal. And again, they still have Justin Fields. They still have Ryan Day. So it will be a good idea of kind of where to see where Ohio State is. I mean, look, next week, Halloween, will be the real true measuring stick for Ohio State when they play Penn State. I mean, that will really tell us where Ohio State is. But this will give an idea to people of, okay, what can we expect from Ohio State? Because if Nebraska truly does give them a really good game and it comes down to the fourth quarter, then Clemson truly is by far the best team. But if Ohio State does what I think they will do, and that's make this a first half game, and they're playing backups in the fourth quarter, then it will put Ohio State to where I believe they probably are, and that'd be number 3 in the country. The night game, the primetime game, Michigan will travel to Row the Boat, Minnesota. It was announced today that Nico Collins, the top wide receiver who looked like he was going to play, then he said opted out, and we haven't heard anything, was left off the roster. So now to become pretty much official, Nico Collins will not be on the roster. Ambry Thomas decided not to come back as well. Big news, though, of course, Jalen Mayfield, their most experienced and best offensive lineman, did opt back in, so they get him back to play tackle. But a lot of new. I mean, this is the complete opposite of Clemson and Ohio State, because they have a quarterback taking snaps. Joe Milton is expected to be the starting quarterback for the Wolverines on Saturday night. They're going to have, a new look at receivers, because they lost Donovan Peoples-Jones to the draft, and now Nico Collins has opted out, so they'll and Sanders still, and these other guys to kind of step up a little bit. Cornelius Johnson, all these guys that we saw in bits and pieces last year will have to step up. They're going to ask that of those people. But I think the biggest thing is 4 new offensive linemen and a new quarterback. I mean, that is a huge deal. I would argue losing 4 offensive linemen might be a bigger deal than a new quarterback. I mean, that is they almost had 5 if Mayfield wouldn't have opted back in. So it'll be interesting. However, on the other side, the Gophers got Rashad Bateman back. He opted back in after originally opting out. He's their best wide receiver, their best playmaker on offense. They get Tanner Morgan back this year, their quarterback, who was phenomenal last year. I think that this will be a really good measuring stick for both teams. I think for Minnesota, it's not nearly as big of a deal because of the media attention against Michigan and all that. But for Minnesota, I think, it's really a win-win in a way. I mean, obviously, nobody there would think that. But if they lose close, I think people will go, okay, Minnesota's still a good team. But if Michigan loses close, we all know how the media treats the Wolverines. So I don't really have to say that much past that. But it's a big game. There's a trophy line, the Little Brown Jug between these two teams. They don't play every year, so one of these teams will keep this trophy for at least couple of years, usually 2 or 3 years before they play each other again. So there is a trophy at stake. Of course, in a shortened season, 1-0 is more important than ever, and you're playing a Big Ten opponent. So very, very big game in prime time. It'll be interesting to see. I really look. I want to, and I do believe Michigan can win the game. I think that I do believe that Joe Milton was the right pick. I do believe that Joe Milton is the right guy. I still love their running game. Charbonnet and Haskins coming back. I still believe they have really good talent on the outside to help mixing out. I still believe in their defense. They brought back some really good studs. Josh Ross is going to be back this year. I think they're going to be good. Daxton Hill is one of the best young safeties in college football. I love their defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson and Carlo Kemp and Kwity Paye are going to be really big down on the defensive line for them. To get Kwity Paye back was huge. After he had opted out originally and opted back in, so that was huge. I believe this team. Do I think they can beat Ohio State? No. I'm not even sure they can beat Penn State, but do I think they can beat Minnesota? Yes, I do. And it'll be interesting, right? We're all of us are just kind of waiting. Is Joe Milton the real deal? And that we'll probably know really where this. I don't want to say by the first quarter because it's a new quarterback, new offense of line. But I think we'll kind of know after the game where this team can go. I think it will be a really good measuring stick for Michigan, and it'll show us kind of how good Joe Milton really can be after the game. It'll be a really good, measuring stick's the best way to put it for Michigan. And it will be a good way to gauge where the Wolverines and what they can be in 2020. Of course, they have a big game next week, obviously Halloween against the Spartans, Michigan State at noon on Fox. That'll be a huge game as always. But, I don't know. I hope next week on the show I'm leading off with a Michigan victory and get to talk about all the good things, not the bad things. This is a big year. Not as big as it would have been if it was a normal year. I don't think you can take a whole lot of heat this year. I don't think you can put a whole lot of blame because you have so much change and it's a short season and it was a weird off season. So I'm not gonna put a whole lot. If this was a normal season, I obviously would have said, okay, they've got to do some stuff this year. It also is arguably going to be the best Ohio State team that they've had probably since they won the national championship. With the experience that they have and the talent they have, it's astronomical. So, no, Michigan's not there. Obviously, any team can be any team. It happens. Look, Ole Miss almost beat Alabama, and then they got destroyed by Arkansas. So, any team can be any team any week. It's just the talent right now is still off. But it'll be a good measuring stick for Michigan to kind of see, okay, what can they be this year? Can they be a team? Can Joe Mixon be the guy? Can this team take that next step to be second? Can they beat a Penn State and Wisconsin? Can they be right there with Ohio State? Or are they still where they've been the last 3-4 years, third best, second best, right there, and, 2 steps behind Ohio State? I don't know. I'm not saying that Saturday's game is going to tell us that because we're not going to know until after the season. But we'll have a better idea on Saturday of can this team have a chance at doing that. And we'll find out. I am going to say that Michigan's going to win. I'm predicting that. I do believe they will. I think that I trust Josh Gaddis, the offensive coordinator, to have a plan with Joe Mixon and that new offensive group. Again, I do like the defense. And honestly, I think I would rather, and maybe more specifically in this game because of what Minnesota has offensively. I would be honest with you, I'm actually happier that the defense is more veteran and seasoned, that they have more of the returners, because the best part of Minnesota is their offense. So to know that, Michigan, they didn't lose nearly what the offense did, and they have Cam McGrone and Josh Ross, who believe they're going to be 2 of the best running backs. That defensive line that I talked about, Daxton Hill in the back. The cornerback's going to be interesting, right? They lost LaVar Hill to the draft. They lost Ambry Thomas to the opt-out. So that will be interesting, but I don't know. I have not said this on the show because I was not here during the show last year, but I did say this. If Don Brown, this year is huge for Don Brown, not for Jim Harbaugh, not for Josh Gaddis. But this season, in my opinion, is a make or break year for Don Brown defensively. If he does not keep, first of all, if he does not go back to what we saw in 2016 and 2017, where that defense was able to win games, and if he does not keep us within 2 scores of Ohio State, if we get blown out again, if they score 60 on us again, Don Brown has to go. So it is not a make or break year for Harbaugh or Gaddis, but it is a really big year for Don Brown. We need to see, because he's bringing back so many guys. It's not like he doesn't get that excuse of a whole new defense. He doesn't. So he's got to prove to Michigan fans and to, I think Jim Harbaugh, I would argue too, he's got to prove to Jim Harbaugh that he can be the guy that we brought in. I mean, look, the first few years was exactly what you wanted. But these last 2 or 3 years have been horrendous, especially against Ohio State. These 60-point games are a disaster every year. They can't happen, and there's no excuse. The talent gap is not that big of a difference where they should be hanging up 60 on us. So that's got to change, and I think this is a big year for Don Brown. He's got to prove that he can be the defensive coordinator at Michigan, or we're going to have to look elsewhere. Still going Michigan. Go Blue. Go Wolverines. Go beat Minnesota. Go get 1-0 and go do it. And also, by the way, I'm picking Ohio State by 30. So there you go. Thank you again for everybody for listening today to the JD Sports Show on 12 Ounce Sports. I appreciate all the support each and every week. We'll see you again next Monday right here on 12 Ounce Sports. Have a good rest of your week, everybody.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.